Hello and welcome to Cupcake Addiction's chocolate ganache tutorial. For those of you that are cake decorators or have been keeping up with a lot of the cake decorating shows that are on TV at the moment, you may know what chocolate ganache is. For those of you that don't, stay tuned, you need to know this. Chocolate ganache is basically a combination of chocolate and cream. When melted down, it forms this beautiful, decadent, dark chocolate river, and when it comes back to room temperature, it's a beautiful, pipeable frosting that you can use on cupcakes or cakes. I also use it on all of my wedding cakes. I use it to layer in the middle and then to form a beautiful shell before I cover them with fondant. So chocolate ganache is definitely one of those things that you want to know. Some people say it's really hard to get right, but I have here today a tried and tested foolproof recipe that's sure to get you cooking with ganache. Tools and equipment that we will be using today. I have just a standard household whisk. If you don't have a whisk, you can use a spoon, but it's going to take you a little bit longer in stirring, so I would definitely try to find a whisk. I've got a spoon. I've got some dark chocolate melts. You can use any sort of dark chocolate you like. The better quality, the better your ganache will turn out. So I wouldn't suggest going with a really cheap dark chocolate. You can go couverture, you can go really high quality if you like. For the purpose of today's exercise, I've just gone with a Nestle. I've got some thickened cream, pasteurized thickened cream. So for us here in Australia, this is what we refer to it as. It's basically the cream that you would whip. When you whip it, it becomes firm. You might dip strawberries in it, you might use it in between a Victoria sponge or use it to layer a cake. So I have 600 grams or 21 ounces of the dark chocolate, and I have 300 milliliters or 10 ounces of the cream. Those are our measurements for today. I've got a set of kitchen scales and I've got just a standard sized bowl. Now this ganache is completely microwave, so there's no chance that you're going to leave it on the stove, and there's no chance that you're going to overcook it if you do it the way that I tell you. I'm going to turn these scales on. We're going to get measuring. We're just going to pop that chocolate into the bowl. Try not to eat it before you get it in there. Alright, that's our 600 grams or our 21 ounces. Still plenty left over for snacks. Now for our cream. See that cream? Nice and pourable. It can sometimes be a little bit thicker than that, so don't worry too much if it is. Now I'm going to take our chocolate and cream mixture and I'm going to place it in a standard 1000-watt microwave for a minute at a time for 4 1-minute intervals. I'll bring it back at the end of each minute so you can see how it looks, and we'll give it a stir in between. Alright, so at the end of our first minute in the microwave, it's not looking terribly much different. Some of your melts will be starting to soften a little bit. We're going to give that a good stir. You can see how the melts don't look like they're melting, but when you stir it, they actually do start to break down. So you want to give that a good stir, about 30 seconds, before we put it back in for its next go. Okay, so this is the end of 2 minutes. You can still see we've still got quite a few chunks of chocolate in there. So we've had it in for 1 minute, done our 30-second stir, and it's just come out of the microwave after a 2nd minute. Going to stir it again for another 20 or 30 seconds, and we're just slowly breaking down that chocolate. You can see there as I'm stirring, it's even starting to thicken up. A lot of people do their ganache on the stove top. I prefer to do it in the microwave because I have more control. I tend to walk away from the stove top and I tend to burn my ganache. Alright, so we've just come back from our 3rd minute. You can see that's a lot thinner now to stir. But we do still have lots of little grains and little bits in there. So we want to give that another 30-second stir. With chocolate, it's the agitation of chocolate that actually breaks it down and melts it. So you really want to make sure that you get it moving. Now your microwave might be a little bit different. So while you're cooking this, do make sure that you're looking for the consistencies that I'm showing you. And if you have the tutorial running on a laptop beside you or something so you can pause it or go back to it. Some microwaves are going to do it a little bit faster, and some microwaves might just take a little bit longer. So you can see here it's starting to look like this beautiful, thick, gooey, still slightly grainy chocolate deliciousness. That's going back into the microwave now for our 4th minute. Okay, so we're back from our 4th and final minute in the microwave, and this is where the whisk comes in. You can see there, definitely still some little grains in there, so now I am just going to whisk it until I am absolutely confident that I can't see any grains. Now by now the bowl should be feeling quite hot to touch. It is quite hard to burn ganache if you do it by this method, so long as you're just giving it those short bursts in the microwave, they should be fine. You should not have any trouble. Now as you stir this, you will feel it start to thicken, and you'll notice the grains just disappear and it starts to go a little bit glossy. For those of you wanting to know how to make a white chocolate version of this ganache, you can do it, but the measurements are slightly different. If you wanted to do it out of white chocolate, you're looking at 225 mils or 8 ounces of the cream, and you're looking at 700 grams or 24 ounces of the chocolate. Other than that, the method is exactly the same. Alright, so I've been hard at work with my whisk for about 3 or 4 minutes now, and the way that we can tell that ganache is done, it's actually gotten quite thick and it's gone quite glossy. If you look at it there, it does still look like there's some grains in it. These are just little air bubbles because I've been stirring it for so long. So a good way to check is to put some on a spoon and just dribble it off. Watch it as it falls back into the ganache, back into the main bowl, and you will notice there are no grains. And if you absolutely have to, taste it. You'll be able to taste grains straight away. Be warned, if you do taste it, you may end up eating the whole bowl because it is absolutely delicious. Now with ganache, I generally make it the day before I need to use it because I like to let it sit at room temperature for about 12 to 24 hours before I use it. If you are wanting to use it same day, you can refrigerate it. If you refrigerate it, you do run the risk that you may over harden it. You can always bring it back down just by microwaving it in really short 15-second bursts to bring it back down to a pipeable consistency, but the refrigerator it's a second option if you're in a hurry. Now with my ganache, I always cover it with cling film before I put it into the refrigerator, or before I leave it to set. And with my cling film, I always take it all the way down. Let's get a better view in there. I always take my cling film all the way down while the ganache is still quite warm and just pat it onto the top. You'll lose a tiny bit of the top layer, but if you don't put the cling film all the way down, you do end up with a crust on top of the ganache. And when that crust hardens and you go to mix it, it gives you all those little grains that we worked so hard to get out. So I'm going to leave that now. I'm going to leave it overnight, and it's going to be perfectly ready to use in the morning.